Oh, hey, everybody joining us at home. Welcome to our daily Rebel Roundup. Today is Thursday, May the 15th. Crazy to think that we're already
I know.
halfway through the month of May. Summer will be here before we know it. And today I'm your co-host, Tamara Ugolini, and our regular correspondent and daily host, Sheila Gunn Reid from Alberta. So, welcome and thanks for joining us. We are here to feature the news items of the day, and it's a great way for us to kind of just off the cuff talk to our audience, get out some news pieces in a way that's kind of a rapid fire dissection, and then we can provide commentary or feedback. And so, one fun way that our audience can help contribute to our efforts and also have your voice heard is by contributing to various platforms. So we're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, or X, and you can give us what is called a Rumble rant over on obviously Rumble, or a super chat on YouTube. And through a small monetary donation of $5 or more, we will read your comment as live as possible on air. So we'll try to kind of get to them as they relate to the topics that we're going through. And today, our main headliners, so to speak, are Carney's middle class tax cut, Poilievre on pipelines, and a Save the Ostriches update, because this is now receiving global attention.
Yeah.
These ostriches, I think that there's 400 of
Yeah.
them roughly that it will be culled or are to be culled. We'll see if any good boots on the ground journalism will make a difference, but we'll get to that toward the end of the show. So if you're joining us, feel free to chip in the chat or just fire away in there. Let us know what you're thinking. If you'd like to have anything more widely broadcast on the Rebel platform, then chip in if you're able to. We always appreciate hearing from our audience because we don't take a penny from the government. And so we are donor led and donor funded. So thanks everyone in advance for your support. Sheila, I didn't even ask, how are you doing? And I think I covered all the housekeeping stuff, but feel
You
free
did.
to fill any gaps in if I didn't.
No, you did. You're doing a great job, and I'm so glad you are because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I had to go. I did a whole day's worth of work before noon yesterday, grabbed my stuff, ran out the door, and I hosted our Rebel News emergency town hall on sovereignty and the issue of Alberta separation or sovereignty association or whatever it is. We're a place to host the conversation. And so we did that in Calgary last night. And then when that wrapped up, I drove the 4 hours back home. And so I'm running a little rough today. I'm a little bit tired. So I'm so glad that Tamara, you're as sharp as you always are today. But yeah, it's a strange time. Mark Carney is acting like a fiscal conservative if you listen to him. But if you read between the lines, not much of one at all. And I can't believe that all of a sudden I'm on Team Ostrich. There are two animals that I really dislike, and it's through personal experience. One of them is ostriches, and the other one is llamas. And I'm cheering for the ostriches now. I can't believe it. This is how bad the Canadian government is, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. And I think those ostriches, by the way, are alive in no small part thanks to Drea's public awareness campaign through her journalism, bringing awareness to the plight of these ostriches and this farm as it faces the unscientific heavy hand of government. Actually, you know what? Let's just do we have a video from Drea announcing? We'll get to that in a bit. Let's
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
Mark. I don't want to go off the rails here. This is why Tamara is in the driver's seat today. I'm already screwing this up. Mark Carney, Canada's, he announced the cabinet, and then he did this like very theatrical
Hmm.
Trump-like, by the way, signing of an executive order of which we don't have in this country, to bring in a middle class tax cut. For a guy who like made a campaign on campaigning against Trump, why are you acting just like him by inventing an executive order in Canada? It makes no sense.
As we look to build out this economy, it's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut et respecter nos engagements, notre engagement pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Thank you very much. as we look to.
Oh, there's all the clapping seals. Yeah, it's just, this is just it's a purely performative gesture that he did. And, you know, it's like Mark Carney's just off to the virtue signaling races. And this isn't how the parliament works implements things into law in Canada. It has to be signed off by the Governor General, not Mark Carney. So I don't know what he's signing. It looks like you can see there's a little logo there. So it looks like it's some sort of formal document, you know, that he's doing big things. And that's not to say that a tax cut isn't very much welcome and isn't a big thing, but this is clearly performative in nature and nothing more than that. The Prime Minister doesn't sign off on things like this in Canada, but yeah, I'll have a report out. I hope later today it will be up on some of the other kind of Trump adjacent things that Carney has been doing. And of course, we'll share some clips of Poilievre, who's now basically calling him out for stealing some of their policies. And yeah, it's like, when did Carney all of a sudden become a conservative?
Well, don't give him too much credit, because that massive middle class tax cut, and again, I'm for lowering taxes. Every little bit helps. But to pretend like this was some big sort of grand gesture, he lowered it from 15% down to 14.5% for the second half of 2025. And then down, you'll get the full 1% through 2026. So helpful, yes. You know, might save you a couple $100 on your tax bill. But this is not like the big, like, slash cut. We care about the little guy gesture that he made it seem. It's a 0.5 percentage point.
Yeah. Yeah, great context always to add. And maybe, Sheila, that's worth a community note on X, because I see there's already one pending, just basically saying, like, this doesn't mean anything because it's the Governor General who signs off on this stuff. So I love double checking. Like, it's a great way for everyday people to be, you know, these fact checkers. And so by doing that, other people can see that kind of added context that's needed on some of these things, because otherwise, you know, you hope that you can take these things at face value. And as we continue to learn, you simply cannot. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre, leader of the official opposition, is calling out the Liberals for failing to deliver a budget. And he says in there, anyway, we'll play the clip, but basically this hasn't happened since the 60s, apart from, you know, the COVID era, when it was all kind of like, money is no object and we're just going to react however we need to and spend billions of dollars and not worry about how we're going to pay it back until, you know, your grandchildren, they can worry about that.
That's the kind of intricate hard work that we have to do as parliamentarians to protect our economy, and that takes a plan to reverse the Liberal housing crisis, a plan to reverse the Liberal inflation crisis, a plan to reverse the Liberal jobs and economic growth crisis, a plan to stand up against American tariffs. And that plan always comes in the form of a budget. A budget determines and informs Canadians of the size of the debt and the deficit, of the future interest rate and inflation costs, of the tax policies that determine whether companies hire or fire employees, of the laws that allow us to or block us from building major infrastructure projects that will create jobs and make us more independent from the Americans who are threatening us with tariffs. Now, Mr. Carney said during the election campaign that he had a plan, and he took great delight in saying that a slogan is not a plan. Well, a budget is a plan. And if he does indeed have a plan, if he does know what he's doing, then he would introduce a budget so that Canadians know exactly what the finances are. We were very disappointed yesterday to hear that he has no budget plan for this year. This makes it the longest period without a budget since the 60s, the first time there has not been a budget outside of COVID in over 20 years. Extremely unusual. It'll send a bad signal to investors and ratings agencies, and a lot of people will wonder what the Liberal government is hiding about our finances. And so we're here with solutions. I'm proposing offering the Prime Minister to sit down with him and propose conservative solutions that we hope that he will steal. I want him to steal our best ideas. That includes cutting the bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and other wasteful spending to bring down deficits, inflation, and taxes. We want a real income tax cut that rewards hard work, axe the federal sales tax on new homes to promote more building and lower costs, and stand up against American tariffs with lower taxes on Canadian investment and by repealing all of the anti-energy policies like C-69, C-48, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, and unleashing our resources so that we can become the richest country in the world. Now, these are ideas that Conservatives are putting forward, but I'm happy to bring them right to the Prime Minister's desk and invite him to steal them and put them right in his platform. And if he does, then we will help get those passed before Canada Day. So let's work together, let's have a real plan, a real budget, and let's bring it home. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, the Liberals, I'm not sure what they need a budget for. They just continue to spend money through special warrants, right? Like they one for, I think, $30 billion and another one for around $44 billion. These Governor General special warrants that are used to continue to fund the government during times of election periods, but because they prorogued Parliament for an extended period so that they could shuffle the deck so that they could install Mark Carney, they actually needed 2 of these special warrants. So $73 or $74 billion without any sort of parliamentary oversight. And then these yahoos say we're not even going to bring in a budget. And Fitch, the ratings agency, has already threatened to downgrade Canada's credit rating because of our debt load. This is just wholly irresponsible. And I hope the boomers in Ontario are happy with themselves.
Yeah, and not all boomers.
No, again, don't write me letters if you didn't vote for Carney. I'm not talking about you.
I have some boomers in my life that are like, no, it's not us. We trying.
We know it's not you.
But the Liberals, like, slashing, if you slash the bureaucracy and you cut the consultants, what's left for a Liberal government to do? It's like they go hand in hand. That would mean, taking your cronies off the taxpayer siphon and the taxpayer trough. And I think that's very, very unlikely. But perhaps if the 0.5% tax cut has anything to do with it, maybe we're on the right track. Maybe, just maybe, we're on the right track. But I would say it's pretty doubtful, especially when we have, eco-radical and climate criminal Stephen Guilbeault being, placed. It was all the worst of the worst that have been re-implemented as the front runners in Carney's cabinet selections, which Pierre Poilievre is also calling out specifically for the decision to keep the climate czar Stephen Guilbeault in cabinet.
Is Stephen Guilbeault a threat to national unity in his current role as Minister of National Identity and Quebec Lieutenant?
Yes, he is. Absolutely. I mean, I just find it astonishing that Mr. Carney would appoint a man who says we don't need any pipelines built. The Liberals went around the country pretending they had changed their minds about pipelines after 10 years of blocking them. But now one of Mr. Carney's top ministers comes out and says we don't need any more pipelines, and that he would work to block those pipelines. He wants to block road construction. He's against nuclear power. He's against all forms of economic development. And that will be bad for the entire country, to be clear, but especially antagonistic to the resource-producing provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta, who rightly feel that they have been mistreated by this lost Liberal decade. So what we see, we have Mr. Guilbeault, who wants to block resource development. We have Sean Fraser, who created the immigration crisis and then the housing crisis. A new housing minister yesterday who says he doesn't want housing costs to go down. Presumably he wants them to go up, like they did when he nearly tripled them as mayor of Vancouver. So what we're seeing is that in the last 48 hours of this Liberal government is looking a lot like the last 10 years of the Liberal government. What we need is a real change, a change so that we can bring home the country that we knew and loved, so that anyone who works hard gets a powerful paycheck, they can live in a nice, affordable home on a safe street, and we as Conservatives will work with anyone to bring home that Canada. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same old failures just shuffled around. Like Guilbeault has gone from being the guy who stifled oil and gas at the Environment Ministry to the guy who's going to stifle free speech over at the Heritage Ministry. Like, he was given a lateral move. He should have been demoted. And when we are in absolutely a unity crisis in this country, I mean, 4 out of 10 Albertans want to leave, and 50% of them say, yeah, we should at least put this to the people. What does Carney do? Gives us the guy who caused so much of the division in the first place, and puts one of Guilbeault's acolytes into the Environment Ministry, Julie Drabusin. She has taken credit for the plastics ban. She is a radical anti-pipeline lunatic. She says it'll never be free to pollute again. And she's a radical anti-gun crazy person. So the person that he replaced Guilbeault with is just as bad as him, but also with this extra focus on Western culture by being anti-firearms. So well done, Mr. Carney.
Yeah, it's just an added slap in the face to Albertans who, and many Canadians who were hopeful for a real change, a change in government. And I don't know, the elbows up Liberals, well, we'll see. As we said last week, Carney's elbows were pretty far down last week the week before when he met with President Trump at the Oval Office. So, yeah, I think more of looking like a dog with your tail between your legs to come from Mark Carney, and disguised by this these glamorous little Twitter clips and virtue signaling visuals.
Who in their right mind thinks that this has changed? And yet, if you wander into the X liberal verse, they're like, oh yeah, this is real change. This is a cabinet we can get behind. I'm like, they're the same failures as last time. Like, Sean Fraser has screwed up every portfolio he touched. Like, not only did he just maintain something as consistently bad, he actually made it worse. And now he's the AG. Like, now he's in charge of the laws of the land. Screwed up immigration, screwed up housing. And they're like, you know what? You're the man for the justice system. We've got a real crime wave in this country, by the way, and now he's over there. What could possibly go wrong? It's all the same failures.
I mean, yeah, and look at Anita Anand, infamous at the beginning. Just, she is one of the main pandemic profiteers very early on.
Yeah.
Her husband's company, well, he's the board of directors, Life Labs, was awarded, I'm just trying to pull it up here, I think it was, almost $70 million worth of COVID-related contracts for the test kits for foreign travelers, and then he was awarded another 1.9 million. Anyway, these pandemic profiteers, they're literally the worst of the worst that have just been shuffled around and placed back front and center for Canadians, and Canadians that see through it are just reeling. And then other Canadians are like you said, the liberal verse is like, oh, this is the change that we all needed.
This is what we needed.
Elbows up, everybody.
It's crazy. And slowly we turn into a country that is just owned by Brookfield Asset Management. Like, we're just going to call ourselves Brooktopia by the end of these 4 years, and everything's going to be done by Brookfield, and we're just going to live in our Brookfield cubicles.
You will own nothing and you will be happy, Sheila.
You better believe it.
And now we also have Premier Ford also sounding kind of like a conservative again. All of a sudden, after 10 years, Ontario Premier Doug Ford wants to see more pipelines.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got my opinions on this. We'll talk about them after.
Yeah.
But why is Wab Canoe the one I like the most here? Like, this is bad. Anyway.
It just can't be business as usual. We have to move forward. We got elected on a strong mandate, and we have to compete against, not just around the world, but compete against President Trump and his tariffs. And the only way we can do that is if we get rid of C-69. It doesn't allow all of us across the country to move forward in a rapid speed. And I really appreciate what Prime Minister Carney mentioned yesterday. I personally feel he's going to move quick, but we all have to move quick, all the premiers, to get our economy going, make sure we give certainty to everyone across the country, not just our individual provinces and territories.
And I know we all have those big nation-building projects in mind that we want to see get done. We all want a clean, safe, healthy environment for the future generations of Canada. We all love that as Canadians. I just think it's important for the Prime Minister to respond to the current moment and ensure that these big job-creating economic projects can move forward in a good way.
Why do I like Wab Kinew the best? Like, I hope Wab Kinew becomes the federal party leader of the NDP, because while I probably disagree with him on 75% of issues, I don't think he's actually insane, and I appreciate his redemption arc. Yeah, he's got a storied backstory, but I feel like he is one of the more reasonable premiers in this country. He's certainly not a crazy person like David Eby, as far as NDP leaders go, or Naheed Nenshi here in Alberta, and he's pro-oil and gas. Great. But Doug Ford to say, like, oh yeah, we got to scrap Bill C-69. Why the hell did you push forward the guy who's campaigned on keeping it? You know, like, he campaigned for Mark Carney. Now you're all like, we got to get some pipelines built. Well, based on the fact that Stephen Guilbeault is still in cabinet and saying, we're not building any pipelines, we don't need any pipelines, and then having Julie DeBruce and the crazy lady that's over at Environment now, that's a pretty strong message to the rest of us at these nation-building pipeline projects that NDP Premier in Manitoba, Wab Kinew, thinks are valuable. Those aren't going to get built as long as Mark Carney's around.
Exactly. Yeah. Why didn't you just sit down and zip your mouth during the federal election instead of, working against the Conservatives who wanted to open up all of this economic force that we have literally just beneath our feet in Canada? And I mean, Doug Ford, better late than never, I seem to always say about Doug Ford and his flip-flop capabilities, where he's just kind of going wherever the political wind blows him. But yeah, where were you, 6 months ago, last year, 5 years ago, 6 weeks ago? Again, better late than never, Doug Ford. But I mean, you could have came out and started saying these things a long time ago.
He was the guy who was saying to Alberta that we were basically traitors because we weren't going to turn off oil and gas to the United States, which actually would have resulted in turning off oil and gas to Ontario and Quebec, but he's not bright enough to know that. And so now he's all pro-pipeline,
Well, I think he's seen too, like, the electric vehicle stuff is failing despite massive millions in funding billions in funding from various governments, both provincial and federal. And then, the crickets in London, Ontario, the largest cricket facility, is going under despite, again, millions thrown at it too. So these, like, alternative energies, the alternative food sources, all of the stuff that the global elite want us little plebs, the little guys, to be mandated to eat and live by, that's all crumbling. It's not successful. It's failing industries. And you're seeing it play out in real time now. And so what's left? Well, we have reliable, consistent, dependable energy sources. And why aren't we literally tapping into them? Like, let's go here, guys.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And then they keep saying there's no business case. Like, it's the dumbest thing ever, because the fact that they wanted us to turn off oil and gas to the United States tells me that, there's a pretty good business case, right? Like, it's a pretty strong weapon if you wanted it to be, which means, there's a business case for it. But we've got this government that just is proceeding at breakneck speeds towards this electric vehicle mandate, which nobody wants. The grid is not equipped to support. And, they're trying to do it through legislation. They're saying like, oh, all the new Canadian cars by 2035 have to be electric. And so then nobody's buying those. So what do? You give money to the electric vehicle automakers and their adjacent battery plants. Billions and billions of Canadian dollars go into that. And then they also go bankrupt because this is Canada. They're unreliable. Like nobody wants them. You cannot shoehorn us into this through a command and control economy. Honda has delayed a $15 billion electric vehicle project, citing demand. Yeah, no kidding. And they're shifting some CRV output to the United States. So the CRV is their like flagship, affordable, middle of the road, smaller SUV. And their CRV that's was originally supposed to be made in Canada and intended for sale in US markets. Well, they're just cutting out the middleman and they're just moving production to their Ohio plant because of tariffs, which is exactly what the tariffs are designed to do, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. When Carney went and tried to have that meeting with President Trump, he's like, oh, well, we have all of these things we can offer you, steel, aluminum. And Trump was like, we want to manufacture it here. We are bringing our manufacturing back home. Like this isn't a difficult concept to understand, especially, Mark Carney claims to be this like seasoned businessman and banker. And it's like Trump was always campaigning on America first. He always said he wanted to bring manufacturing back to the US. And so how is Canada going to insulate itself from that move? And here we are. This is exactly what Trump wants. And Canada is elbows down, cowering at the side, looking at Trump like, he's some sort of mentor. That's the leader that we have, who pales in comparison. Like I just see the body language between Trump and Carney, and it's scary to think that is who is representing us. I mean, Trudeau had his own problems. Do not get me wrong, but at least he was like so ignorant to his own incompetence that it seemed like he had confidence.
Right,
but Carney doesn't even have that.
Yeah, Trudeau had this like idiotic lack of self-awareness, which was like you could interpret as confidence, even though he should not have had confidence in his capabilities. But Carney, his body language is quite submissive. Mm-hmm. And the subsidization of our electric vehicle auto sector, if you could call it that, is resulting in exacerbating these tariff problems, right? Like it's one of those things that becomes a prickly sticking point for the Americans because we're dumping billions of dollars into subsidized. Am I back?
All right. I'm not sure if it's on my end or Sheila's end.
I don't know. I think it was Zoom. Am I back?
That we've lost everything here. Sorry to our viewers. I hope that you can hear us now. I'm just trying to catch up to see what's going on. But yeah, the electric vehicle fiasco that's happening despite billions of money being invested, and that's our tax dollars.
Right.
Just to see these things crumbling and failing, it's actually insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Like, let's take the loss and let's get into the ground and get that reliable liquid gold under our feet and start capitalizing on that economic growth that we can tap into.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to just go on this still. Doug Ford still can't figure out what's going on because he says, I've talked to Honda and they've promised us they're going to continue on with their expansion. But Honda is saying, no, we're moving these EVs to Ohio. They're going to the American market anyway. And then Flavio Volpe, he's on the Prime Minister's task force on trade. He's with the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. He's blaming the tariffs. I think he's right. But I just don't like Flavio Volpe because he was one of those people who was like, you need to bring in the Emergencies Act because they're blocking the bridge in Windsor. And so he was like the guy that was really pushing for that from the auto sector. So his credibility is kind of garbage for me, but he's not actually particularly wrong here. He is right. That is the tariffs causing this. And this is what the tariffs were designed to do. It was designed to repatriate auto manufacturing back to the United States. Here it's happening.
It's happening, and the Liberals have no
plan.
There's no clear plan. Yeah, there's nothing happening. So the new cabinet was unveiled just 2 days ago, and Melanie Joly is now the industry minister. Right. Yay for that. And she had to field some questions about what is going to happen to the auto workers as these auto plants are moving into the United States, thanks to the tariffs that were intended to do this very thing. And we know that and Carney knows that. I mean, he moved Brookfield back in November. Right. He saw the writing on the wall. I mean, this isn't, anybody who has been paying attention can see that this was destined to occur, and yet there has been nothing put in place to quell it, to compensate it, to stop it from happening, to ramp up manufacturing here in Canada. This is the response we get instead from the industry minister, Melanie Joly. Have a listen.
What are their contingency plans? The Prime Minister says we always have to plan for the worst. If the auto plants move south, can they be retooled? Can you redevelop the auto plants?
So I've already been in contact with the CEOs of GM, Ford, and also Stellantis. My goal is to be able to have good conversations with them before the end of the week. My message to the workers in the auto sector is we're there for you. We know that there's anxiety. We know you're concerned about losing shifts. We know we were concerned about losing your jobs, and we will always fight for your jobs. Notwithstanding that, we also have a $2 billion worth of support for the industry, the auto industry, the steel and aluminum industries that are affected by the trade war. One of my first decisions will be also to make sure that the workers can benefit from these investments. Merci.
Yeah. Why weren't these conversations happening back in September, October, November, when Carney decided to move Brookfield into the United States ahead of all of this mess? December, I know Parliament's prorogued come January, thanks Trudeau, instead of just figuring out.
Instead of dealing with this.
Yeah.
They prorogued Parliament because it was more important for them to win the next election and to save those auto sector jobs. And now it is, their solution is we're just going to give these companies money. That's not a solution. And it's only going to make it worse, because the problem Trump has with a lot of our auto sector, especially with the EVs, is we keep giving them money. Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's not fair. Mm-hmm. That's protectionist. You're subsidizing industries that are supposed to compete freely against American companies. It's part of his problem. It's only going to make it worse. You have to have a better solution than, well, you know what? We'll just start printing money. We're going to give these guys who are laid off some money. We're going to give some money to the companies. No thanks for another auto bailout. Like, what? This is not a solution. This is just like, well, we've got some money and we'll just start giving it out. That's how Canada is like the third largest indebted country in the developed world right now, and it's going to get worse. With
literally, as we already said, there is no budget. And you're just, here's $1 billion, we're just going to make it rain, and then we'll worry about how we're going to pay it back later. Like, this is COVID era subsidization for industry shutdowns. I mean, those were government mandated lockdown orders, and this is kind of not too much different because they had months to figure it out. And now here we are, it's happening, companies are moving, and the Liberals are scrambling to try to figure it out because they didn't plan ahead. And they were too worried about a snap election for what is it? The second snap election in a row, than actually doing anything to better the economy and get Canadians out of this mess.
Yeah. I mean, Trump came into power in January. He was elected in November. He campaigned on this, by the way. They just didn't think that he would win. But when he did win, they should have been coming up with a plan, because it's not like this is a surprise to anybody. but they still, even now, have no plan. No, there's no plan whatsoever. Again, why do Albertans want to be shackled to this sinking ship? Makes you wonder.
Yeah. Well, there is a plan, and we'll get to that maybe after an ad break, but I just want to read a quick super chat that we got from JP Power, who gives $5. Says, woo, love you guys and love Ezra the most. Woo, he's really excited. Who likes my Trump shirt? So it says, I guess it's just Trump 2024 in there. Laugh out loud. I wear it all the time here in left wing Windsor, Ontario. Freedom. That's awesome. Yeah, we love that. Thank you so much for your support. We'll hit a quick ad break and then we'll come back to a premier and someone who does have at least some semblance of a plan.
Let's face it, Canada's economy isn't heading in the right direction. Inflation's eating away your savings, and government debt is out of control. No politician is going to fix that overnight. With Guildhall Wealth, you can hold real physical gold and silver inside your RRSP. It's a time-tested way to protect your retirement and take back control of your wealth. Call 1-877-8-SILVER or visit guildhallwealth.com/rebel to request your free investor kit. And hey, make sure to mention Rebel News.
What if governments are trying to reinvent the wheel when the greatest teacher of all times has already laid out the perfect blueprint for a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Introducing the Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport. This special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love, ethics, and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another and to be part of something bigger that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport at freedompassport.ca. And right now, all orders in North America come with free shipping and a free downloadable song with every purchase.
Everyone knows we have the resources, the people, and the drive to succeed. We don't need Team Canada's permission to lead.
You know, those Alberta Republicans, this is not an endorsement of them, but I sure think they have a good looking logo. That's all. Whoever does their graphic design, I thought that was really well done and simple. All right. Speaking of Western alienation, I think it's what I would describe Scott Moe's problem here. Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan, he says, I'm slightly disappointed, but at least he's doing something. He says, I've written to Prime Minister Mark Carney outlining our Strong Saskatchewan, Strong Canada plan. 10 key policy changes the federal government must make to reset Ottawa's relationship with Saskatchewan. The Prime Minister has the ability to move forward on all 10 of these items quickly, which would clearly signal a new, more positive relationship between Saskatchewan and the federal government than we have had for the past 10 years. A strong Saskatchewan means a stronger Canada, and all of these changes will be positive for both our province and our country. And they're much the same things that I mean, there are fraternal twins in Confederation, I say as an Albertan, and it's begin negotiations with China to remove the tariffs on Canadian agri-food products, strengthen the criminal code through bail reform and the introduction of stronger penalties to fight against new street drugs, stop attempting to collect the federal carbon tax on home heating from Saskatchewan to be in line with the full removal of consumer carbon tax. I like that he says stop even trying to collect because they're not getting it. Transfer responsibility for the output-based pricing systems of heavy emitters to the provinces, and that's the large industrial carbon tax that Alberta froze. Repeal the unachievable, unaffordable clean electricity regulations, which Alberta is challenging in court, by the way. And extend the life of coal plants to provide affordable and reliable baseload power to Saskatchewan residents. That's such a good one. Repeal the oil and gas emissions cap, build trade and economic corridors across the country, restore the investment climate, and streamlining federal approval process to allow major projects to proceed. That's basically repeal Bill C-69, and expand pipeline capacity to protect the collective energy security of our nation. And then he says, my government and I are ready to do the hard work needed to move Canada and Saskatchewan forward together. I would welcome the opportunity to meet in person as soon as you are able to further this work. I know that the First Ministers are meeting June 2nd in Saskatoon, I believe it is. Maybe it's Regina. But here's my problem with this very excellent letter. Where's the or else, good sir? There's a lot of like, we need you to do this. And I agree with everything that he said there, but there's no or else. And what the or else should be is Saskatchewan bringing their citizen-led initiative legislation in line with Alberta's, so that the bar for signatures is 10% of those people who voted in the last election, whatever that might be in Saskatchewan, and extend the timeline over 120 days. That's your or else. That puts the feds on notice. We're serious. And if you don't do this, you're dealing with an outraged Saskatchewan public with a way out.
Yeah, and who can easily band and join forces with Alberta, which even strengthens that whole thing more than it already currently is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The dominoes will fall. If one goes, Saskatchewan, if Alberta leaves, and that's up to the people of Alberta to choose. But do you think we're going to leave Saskatchewan behind? Do you think that they're going to stay behind without us? Definitely not. Do you think the interior of BC would be happily left behind when they are so Albertan? They're so like, I could slide into Merritt and be perfectly happy for the rest of my life there. And northern BC with their gas, I mean, they operate as an extension of Grand Prairie, Alberta up there. You think they're going to stay behind and allow themselves to be completely governed by the crazies in Victoria? I doubt it. And the federal government should be aware that it's not just Alberta exiting the place, because as was discussed in our town hall last night in Calgary, it will be like the Eastern Bloc of the Soviet Union falling one after the other after the other.
Right. And well, it's Alberta and Saskatchewan that have the least representation on the federal level. We have this piece here from the National Post. Carney's cabinet has more MPs from Brampton, from one town or city, I should say, from one city than from Alberta and Saskatchewan combined.
Yeah.
So the MPs in Brampton fill the roles of President of the Treasury Board, Minister of International Trade, and Secretary of State combating crime, which just, continues to proliferate all across Canada, but also especially in Brampton specifically. But the fact that the cabinet has more MPs from one, just kind of, I don't know if you'd consider Brampton the GTA, but kind of basically Greater Toronto area, has more MPs from one small area than two provinces combined. That's crazy town to me.
Yeah. I mean, and we're the productive people. Like, this is the problem. And like everything that Carney is doing, I don't care what he's saying. He says a lot of garbage. He says one thing in English, then in French sometimes. I don't care what he's saying. You cannot believe a word he says, no matter what official language he says it is. I care what he's doing. And this is a slap in the face to Alberta. That environment minister is a slap in the face to Alberta. Natalie Provo, the Poilievre lady, being put as the Secretary of State for Nature, whatever that is, after going after real conservationists for the entirety of her anti-gun lobbyist career, keeping Stephen Guilbeault in cabinet. These are all very tangible things that he is doing to say, we don't care about you.
It's just one slap in the face after the next, it seems. Like there's just... one little hiccup, you could say, okay, well, maybe that, wasn't an intentional thing. But the more that you see and you read into it, it's like, this is intentional. This is meant to say and show Alberta and, by extension, Saskatchewan, that too bad. sorry, we're the Ottawa elites, we're the Laurentian elites, and we are going to rule over you whether you like it or not. So this is very interesting political times because there is a real movement growing and has been, for lack of a better word, festering for a long time in the West. That has, it has potential to gain real traction here, and the federal government has not taken any steps to make amends. They've just further driven that wedge in that relationship with these choices, and how they continue to rule.
I do love the shut-uppery that they level at Albertans, right? They're like, well, it'll just be too much work. Like, it'll be too many things to figure out. It'll be too hard, even if you want to leave. What do you, what are you going to do about this? Like, have they met an Albertan? Have they seen this place? It is a terrible, forbidding place climate-wise. And many of our grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents came here with nothing. And they turned this into an economic powerhouse while simultaneously protecting nature and the natural beauty of this place. Do you think we're scared of a little hard work? Have you seen what our industries are? Agriculture, oil and gas, mining. Yeah, we're not scared of hard work. Like, I'm not scared of figuring out what to do with this bureaucracy or that pension plan. Like, that we're not. It's like they don't even know who they're talking about when they say this stuff.
The idea, the paternalization, the continued paternalization of people by the federal government is getting really quite annoying, because it's like we don't need the nanny state. We don't need our hands to be held. We can figure it out. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Yes.
We have Robert Williamson gives a super chat here for $6.99. Thanks so much. Can Rebel News ever do a show on how many Canadians have already left or planning to leave Canada for good and become expats in another country? Yeah, I mean, you can pull it up on the Stats Canada website, and you can see, I don't know what the leg is. You can do both, like Canadians that have left the country, also the interprovincial movement. So a lot of Ontarians have fled to Alberta, and especially during COVID, before Jason Kenney turned crazy. So you can see that, I think it's up to date up until at least the first quarter of 2024. Anyway, definitely, worth looking into. I've done it. I remember featuring a couple reports. It was mostly around the ArriveCan scam, when people were not being allowed back into the country or left because they didn't want to be restricted from traveling both within the country and then, obviously being unable to leave the country. And so I have talked about it before in other reports, but those were probably 2021, 2022. So it's likely due for an update. But anyone can go onto the Stats Canada website and look up those stats for themselves, because it is a big number.
Yeah, it's like 93,000 Canadians left in 2022 and 2023. And that went up from 2020, 2021, which was 66,000. So that's a huge jump. That's like a 50% jump. And actually the research found that 15% of immigrants to Canada come and they're like, no, this is not what we signed up for. It's too expensive. We got to go. And that's like one of the things that they cite is just the unreal cost of living, including housing, taxes, and other expenses. So.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of that happening. And I think you're going to only see more and more of that with the continued Liberal rule. All right. Well, we have this ostrich update to bring you. And
can I tell you, last night at the Sovereigntist Town Hall, I don't know what to describe it as, because there's people from all sort of different viewpoints. But that's all people wanted to talk to me about was the ostriches. And I'm like, I must tell you, I hate ostriches, but I hate government overreach more. And as a farmer, I don't like the state telling me what I can and can't do with my livestock. I would be so angry and like viscerally outraged in a way I can't even describe if they came along and told. It's why I hate the wheat board, because they were telling us where we could sell our products and to whom. And so I'm so glad that is no longer mandatory. But it's for the same reasons. And so it was all people wanted to talk about last night is the ostriches. Is Drea going to see the ostriches? And I had to assure them, yes, we've already sorted that out. As I was talking to them, she was well on her way to the ostriches.
Yeah, and these ostriches are healthy ostriches that are being used to study and find antibodies for the avian flu, right? So this is all being used as a fear tactic, scaremongering about the bird flu, and they're culling off livestock and chickens and other flock and fowl. And so these ostriches are actually being used in pivotal research and studies to develop antibodies because they have robust immunity against the avian flu. One of their flock was sick and died, I think it was last year, with the avian flu, but the other 400 are completely healthy, totally fine. And yet the government's trying to come in and kill them all, which will, of course, halt any of that research and development from continuing on. So this is very sneaky business that's happening. And there's a lot of kind of rabbit holes you can go down when looking at this story. But Drea's been on this beat since the very start. This has been, a few months, several months now, and it's kind of coming to a head now that the CFIA, a judge just ruled in favor to have the flock culled. And so if you want to see Drea's work and support it, because she's just made, I think it was a 9-hour trek to this farm in British Columbia, you can do that at savetheostriches.com. And Drea's just taken to X. She's posted an update where she, I think, paused in her travels because she's had to take a few different modes to finally get to her destination. So it's a 4-minute clip. Maybe we won't play all of it, but I think we should play some of it because I don't know, she's put the little ostriches. She thinks they're cute. I would, I think that's up for debate, but she's put the ostriches in the corner of this video. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's great.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News. May 15th, early morning, I am 2 hours away from Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, BC. I drove through the night to get out here and I got some shut-eye at my in-laws. It's a 9-hour trek. Why? Why is it important that Rebel News is there? Well, many of you know that we don't know. Hours, days, minutes, a week. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency's kill order will be fulfilled unless some miracle stops that. And that is the order to kill 400 healthy, prehistoric, exotic ostriches in the name of protecting public health from the avian flu. But as many of you know from following my reports at savetheostriches.com, you know that makes no sense because their eggs, with their robust antibodies, well, they're being used in partnership with the United States, a university in Japan, and Canada to come up with a defense research against the avian flu so that flocks like them don't have to die. Nearly 9 million birds have been culled in the name of avian flu since 2022 in British Columbia alone. You would think Canada would maybe want that type of research to live on, especially since the initial cull order was from back in December, and here we are in mid-May. But of course, the only logic that makes sense, I guess, is that Moderna, with its $500 million it just got granted to come up with a mRNA avian flu jab, well, that's what makes the most sense. Let's go ahead and kill these healthy birds. Now, I'm going to hop back into the car and I'm going to show you what happens because this is an injustice and it shouldn't be done in the dark. The whole world should see what is about to go down in this country. And I recently interviewed right after they got the news that the federal court sided with the CFIA. After looking through the evidence, I interviewed Katie Piscini. She grew up with these birds. They can live for like 75 years, I think. They live a long time. They're 300 pounds and they can run 70 kilometers per hour. And what is that going to look like? Of course, she didn't want to talk about it, but she described, if one gets shot in the head, the rest will scatter. This sounds absolutely horrific, especially since it didn't need to happen. So I'm going to show you what does happen, but also there's been a call to action by the farmers. And so as I'm standing here, I've heard there's about 40 people already there gathering. So who knows what is about to go down, but you can follow along at savetheostriches.com. And please, if you value our journalism, just like at the trucker convoy where we showed you with live streams so they couldn't effectively lie. The truth was out there. If you value that we get our boots on the ground, I don't know how long I'm going to be out there. I've arranged some childcare. I brought some pepperoni and cheese and boiled eggs with me. And like I said, I stayed at my in-laws, which cut down on costs, but I am going to have to rent accommodations stay at a hotel or motel or lodge. And there's not much in the area. So there, of course, was the 9-hour drive here and my commute. If you really do value our reports, you trust our reports, please consider chipping in to cover the travel expenses involved for me to be there by going to savetheostriches.com. And I've also set up a very quick one-click email where you can fire off saying, hey, stop this, don't go through with this, to the CFIA and other officials on that site as well. So that's two things. Please chip in to cover our travel expenses, and please take action at savetheostriches.com. I'll see you soon.
Well, that was a great 4-minute summary of exactly what is happening with these ostriches. Funny looking birds, really unsettling to think about how that will act, like what that takedown will actually look like. So we'll see if Drea does capture it during her travels there. But yeah, they can run fast. So they will be trying to escape, I would imagine, as soon as anything like that goes down. So we'll see. You can follow along at that website and support Drea in her journey. And of course, follow her on X, where she will also be posting those updates. So crazy times. What a time to be alive. Every time I say like, oh, it can't get any crazier. Here we are calling 400 healthy ostriches.
Honestly, I'm worried about Drea because if she's there, she's got a real soft heart for animals. Like I know a lot of the things I eat personally, like I met them. And so I think I have a different, a more farmery mindset about this sort of stuff. But these are somebody's creatures. These are somebody's property, even if you don't feel for them as ostriches. This belongs to somebody. Actually, I did the numbers. On the low end, this is $500,000 worth of livestock.
Wow.
That the CFIA is just going to cull for no good reason. And as a farmer, I think if they can do it to these birds for some pandemic, wait till we get Nate Erskine Smith's next version of the pandemic legislation, the vegan bill. And what are they going to do then? Right? This cannot stand. And as Drea said, even if it happens, and what a horror it would be if it did, it should not be done in the darkness. Everybody should know. And I Googled the drive from my place to Edgewood, and it only would have been an hour longer than Drea's drive. Like, that's how secluded this is. This place is not a pandemic vector by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. And it's just so funny, sad, odd to contrast how the government is treating these 400 healthy ostriches versus the report that David Menzies just put out last night about these coyotes in downtown urban city center Toronto. It took officials months to decide to eventually euthanize, I think it was 2 coyotes, who had been terrorizing the area, killing pets for months.
Yeah, they brought in all kinds of experts to study them, and I'm like, they're coyotes. They are an invasive species. They're not endangered. Yes, they look like dogs, but they don't behave like Fido, generally speaking. The closer they are to people, the more use they get to people, which means the more bold they get. And these things are in downtown Toronto. They brought in, what was there to study? Like, I would have come in, you could have paid me $100. I would have looked around and said, you know what? bring in the hunters. We got to get rid of them. But this probably costs like $500,000 to study it, to figure out that, yeah, you do have to cull them. The care that they spent on these coyotes offends me.
Oh, yeah. Spending months of consultancy fees and environmental studies and impact this. And they launched, so this is David's report is coyotes run rampant in Toronto neighborhood as city urges cohabitation. And so basically they launched a PR, public relations campaign telling residents that coyotes are their neighbors, right? Where have we heard this before with, don't worry about, we're all neighbors. This is the language that I hear so much with the drug addicts,
right?
And the people who are engaging in open air drug use on our streets, and then the crime that results from trying to fuel and funnel their addiction. It's like, oh, these are our neighbors, and oh, be kind to your neighbors. And it's like these people are wreaking havoc on our communities, and you're just telling us to be, oh, neighborly love. So it was like kind of that same verbiage being used with these coyotes, right? They're wreaking havoc on the local community, killing pets, and causing $7,000 in vet bills for these people at this dog park. And they're told it's like gaslighting just to the extreme, right? Oh, they're your neighbors, and it's actually all our fault because of urban sprawl.
Well, and they can spread diseases too. Like, let's not forget that they're in the dog park. They can spread diseases. They're not endangered creatures. And I realize people are like, oh, they look like a dog, so they, like they're just like my dog. I promise you they're not. I promise you they're not. And at the end of the day, it's the coyotes or your dog and cat. And so that's what it comes down to. It's would you kill baby Hitler? I guess is the question, because they're gonna do something bad, like they just are when they're in proximity with people, and it only gets worse. And so, like, how many pets are they supposed to snatch?
Well, and finally, after, like we said, after months of consultants and PR campaigns and the money, the city of Toronto finally took steps to ensure public safety in Liberty Village and Fort York. And
honestly, I would have done it for free. I would just next time, let me know. I'll come and do it for free. I won't charge you for my consultancy fees. I'll just come. I'll deal with your coyotes. I'll go home. That's it.
They say following a continuation of escalated interactions with coyotes. Like, the language that they're using with this is so absurd and crazy to me. Like foxes, raccoons, and deer, coyotes are a natural part of Toronto's urban landscape, coexisting with residents largely without issue. I mean, and it goes on. So they say here, this is from the City of Toronto, their press release. The city undertook a thoughtful and thorough 3-part review over several months. Included staff regularly monitoring the situation, using aversion techniques on coyotes, enforcing bylaws. So, like, the coyotes, they care about the bylaws, right?
Are you giving the coyotes tickets?
Get out of here, or else you're going to be fined.
You're trespassed.
And educating residents on how to keep themselves and their pets safe. You'll see David Menzies in his video. One woman describes these like coyote coats that they're buying for their animals that have spikes on them. So if a coyote comes and tries to grab this is insane. They also hired an independent third-party expert panel to review the city's response and recommend next steps. And then they engaged 2 coyote expert companies to assess the 4. I can't even get through this because it's so absurd.
I'm in the wrong business.
Oh my gosh. So after all of this, several months, 3-part review, tons of staff, multiple consultants, they euthanized the coyotes because nothing else was working. That is the City of Toronto for you folks. I'd love to know how much was spent on this in total.
This feels like close to $1 million. I just can't even believe it. Coyote consultants. I never even thought of that as a career. But I could do it. The city of Edmonton, this is not a Toronto problem. The city of Edmonton which does have more green space and I think the largest river valley park space in North America. They, of course, naturally have a coyote problem. And when we have fires, the wildlife follow the river valley, right? And so they pop up, like sometimes you'll have a cougar on the golf course in Fort Saskatchewan. And so a couple of years ago, the real coyote problem. And so the city was paying people to walk around and throw tennis balls at the coyotes. And I'm like, are you trying to play fetch with them? What is wrong with you people? And other people were walking around shaking cans of pennies. And I'm like, you're just teaching them not to be scared of you. You realize that you're making this worse. But no, nobody ever hired me as a coyote consultant.
No, and I mean, where are the ostrich consultants? Where are the ostrich company experts? Where, like, have they taken these kinds of steps to mitigate the attack on the neighboring ostriches? I mean, look at the difference between the way that these two different animals were treated by government officials.
One is a valuable research animal owned by somebody. Actually owned by a human being. So it's their property too, but also a valuable research animal. And the other is a random vermin living in this, just living rough, random vermin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, living rough, sleeping rough. Next thing we know, we're going to be giving them some tents to live in. Nana Awake gives us $10. Thank you so much. I'm tired of this unethical government covering their attack against us under the guise of for the greater good. It's solely for the protection of typo here, Big Pharma. And Nana Awake gave another $5 just to make sure that we saw her typo, Big Pharma. The greater good. There's a lot of things going on with the greater good that I'm seeing both like in my reporting life, but also my personal life. And it's really concerning and disturbing at how easily and readily the individual will be thrown under the bus to serve that greater good. And this is the inherent problem with collectivist mindsets, which seem to be alive and well in the bureaucracy, government, big pharma.
I'm glad you mentioned, we'll just touch on this real quick before I run out of energy and brain power. We talk about throwing people under the bus for the greater good. The police are investigating whether an officer leaked a provincial document that showed BC is downplaying safer supply risks. So the police are going on a witch hunt to find out who leaked a provincial document, which shows that their safe supply experiment, which has been going on a better part of a generation, is killing people. It's a failure. It's a taxpayer-funded slow suicide. An officer, perhaps, maybe, I don't know, leaked a provincial document which showed that people are dying thanks to the BC government's policy on this. And instead of saying, we've got a problem on our hands here, people are dying, and we're not doing the job that we're supposed to do, our bad policies are killing people, they're looking for the officer who told the truth, the whistleblower.
Of course. We have to protect the interests of the drug addicts and the people who are funding that drug use. So, there's the greater good, alive and well for you. I think so. I think we've hit all of our headline topics. We will just end here on our daily dose of cringe.
It comes out of Alberta, the Alberta NDP. I haven't seen this, but I know the Alberta NDP. I wrote 2 books about them. They're bad. They're goofy. They're embarrassing. They are the fringe minority in this province. And apparently they're mad because they had to stay late and work last night. The Alberta legislature sits like one of the the least amount of times of, I think, all the legislatures in the country. And normally I'm happy about that when politicians are working, they're wasting your money. So I'm like, get out of there. Just go. Go back to your constituencies. But the Alberta government is trying to pass changes to the Citizen-Led Initiative Act, which lowered the bar and extended the time. And the NDP were real mad about having to work for their money. And so I'm already embarrassed and I haven't even seen this yet. Let's watch together.
We're all gathered here because the UCP just destroyed healthcare.
The UCP is limiting the debate. They're not even letting the public know what's going on.
It's atrocious, the bills they've rammed through tonight. Very big consequences for all Albertans.
They're enabling a separatist referendum and pushing it through the House.
For First Nations, they haven't included any consultation on the medicine chest clause. Abhorrent.
They're destroying democracy in there right now.
They're going to make it almost impossible for Albertans to vote in elections.
It's devastating that they limited debate on healthcare, and I'm worried about the future of my children.
Better is possible, but this is a pretty low place to start.
We are all here to defend democracy in this province because with Bill 54, UCP is destroying the democracy in this province.
The UCP is weak, weak, and weak.
Powerful.
The UCP is limiting debate on Bill 55, which is taking private health care, and that's going to make it difficult for women to access health care.
We know their bills are bad and anti-democratic, but when they limit debate, they're really, really, really bad, and they've done that.
They brought in these bills only about a week ago. They're working to privatize healthcare, and it's going to mean that things get more expensive for ordinary Albertans, and healthcare gets worse for everybody.
I can't even. They're destroying democracy.
Albertans will not let UCP move with divisive politics and dismantle our public health care.
This government just has weak leadership and they're running away from Albertans because they know what they're doing is wrong.
Okay, so I should tell you what they're complaining about. They're complaining about Bill 55 and then the amendments to the Citizen-Led Initiative Act. They keep saying that they're privatizing healthcare. I'm scared. I'm scared for our kids. I'm scared. This is what it is. It's amendments to the Provincial Health Agencies Act, the Public Health Act, and the Protections of Person and Care Act. They're updating the oversight and governance of health foundations, ensuring hospital governance aligns with the healthcare system, refocusing direction, reorganizing the governance and planning for public health services, and repealing references to regional health authorities, health region, and Alberta Health Services in legislation after AHS functions and responsibilities are turned over to the local health authority and transitioned to other entities. So what they're doing is dismantling the power and influence of Alberta Health Services, which is bloated. And if the NDP keep telling me that we have a healthcare crisis in this province, surely it falls at the feet of the people who are tasked with running the system, and that is Alberta Health Services. And so they're just hyperbolic lunatics, and it's just embarrassing because they actually never tell you what's happening, right? They just tell you democracy's falling apart and we're all going to have American-style healthcare. I'm like, okay, I wish, but that's not at all what was happening. They're just basically gutting the responsibilities of Alberta Health Services, and it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch.
Yeah, the inflammatory language is, I think that, you know, it speaks for itself at this point. Like, there's really no substance there. It's just inflame, 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 and prey on emotions and hope that people take what you're saying seriously, because this otherwise it was not a serious video, in my opinion.
You know what?
Which
all
is
it
why
was
it's
missing? All it
the
was
daily
missing,
dose of cringe.
All it was missing was dancing nurses during COVID. That would have been like the final goodbye. It's just the dancing nurses telling us how strained the healthcare system is.
Yeah, we're so busy. Look at us dancing. We had time to perfect our routine.
People are dying, we would have you believe, while we do our little TikTok dance.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we're all out of chats, and we hit the headliners and then our daily dose of cringe. So that's great. Thanks everybody at home who chipped in, who joined us, who watched, shared, subscribed, whatever you do. Follow Drea at savetheostriches.com so you get updates on what is happening there in BC, because it's a real time, fast moving situation. And then 2 Rebels will be back here. I think Sheila and David tomorrow.
I think so.
Same time, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, depending on where you're located, for the Friday Rebel Roundup wrap-up day. Thanks to Olivia and all of our Rebel staff in the background who make sure that this runs smoothly and gets out to you, the viewers. And we will see you same time and place tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Take care till then.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make